Today on the Tearsheet Podcast.
From the very get-go, we custom built our proprietary technology from the ground up. So we wanted this to be a differential advantage of ours from the day we started the company. So our credit decisioning engines, our fraud decisioning engines are all completely homegrown. And these machine learning models and rules and decisioning systems have continuously learned based on billions of data points over the years. And our decade of operations has fine-tuned the system even further.
Welcome to the Tearsheet Podcast. I'm Tearsheet's editor-in-chief, Zack Miller. We've been talking a lot about buy now, pay later, and its role in payments, lending, and banking. Today, we're going behind the scenes in BNPL to see how the sausage is made. I'm joined by Affirm's head of risk, Karthik Ramkumar. He leads a team of dozens of people as he manages all aspects of financial risk, including consumer credit, consumer fraud, merchant credit, and merchant fraud. Our discussion today is pretty far-reaching, from talking about the evolution of the underwriting model, to sought-after skill sets to address fraud, to mental health in the workplace. If you're interested in what goes into building a world-class risk operation at one of the top firms in the space, you're going to want to spend the next 25 minutes with us. Karthik Ramkumar is my guest today on the Tearsheet Podcast.
I'm Karthik Ramkumar. I lead the risk team at Affirm, and I've been here 3 years now. I've spent my entire career in consumer finance and risk management, and I'm very excited about the space and talking to you about it.
So obviously, we're going to be talking about risk management at Affirm. And I think a lot of that has to do, I guess a good way to leg into that conversation is talking about you and your background and what you bring to your role. Can you tell me a bit about, I guess, your experience in the space and what brought you to Affirm?
Sure. So I started as an engineer, and I was a good engineer, but I would have made a very unhappy engineer. I think I like being with people and talking to people. So I stumbled into an analytics role in consumer finance and fell in love with the space. The combination of economics, business thinking, predictive analytics, behavioral thinking, data science, all in a product that really impacts people's lives resonated with me. The fact that every consumer has a consumer finance product, it impacts their day-to-day lives in a really meaningful way, and the good and the bad that we do impact them was something that connected with me. I started my career at Capital One, where I led the team that built the first machine learning model in the industry and pioneered a move away from traditional techniques to these more modern techniques. And that became my calling card as I built my career from there. I had a variety of adventures and misadventures on my way to Affirm. One of the key turning points for me was an entrepreneurial effort where I was trying to build my own business and having a lot of success. But unfortunately, the stress impacted my mental health severely. And that experience transformed me into a vocal advocate for mental health in the workspace, a topic that has become very appropriate, very apt in the pandemic where everyone is struggling just to different extents. Along the way, to keep my analytical skills relevant and to cater to my inner geek, I started guest lecturing at UC Davis. So I do that to stay current. To a question of what drew me to Affirm, I'd been in consumer finance my whole life. I've been in the same space, but I knew that Affirm was at the cutting edge of technology. And the combination of being at the cutting edge of technology plus being at a very mission-oriented business is what attracted me to Affirm. Affirm is hyper-focused on transparency and charges no late fees, no hidden fees. And in my time at Affirm, I've seen the company constantly put our money where our mouth is. And that's something that resonates with me. This mission orientation makes me really proud of the way that Affirm does business, not just the business that we do. So the way that we do business is something that really stands out for me and attracts me to Affirm and keeps me here.
So Karthik, I just want to go back to something you said. You mentioned this entrepreneurial experience, which seems like a very formidable experience in your career. Does that inform some of the work you do at Affirm? Is Affirm, do you thrive in an environment, I guess, even if it's more structured, that has sort of an entrepreneurial bent to it?
Yes, absolutely. And I think Affirm is very unique in some ways, where we really foster a culture of entrepreneurship internal to the company, both entrepreneurship, people doing hustling to create impact in different spaces within the company, but also incubating entrepreneurs for their future entrepreneurial journeys. Max Levchin, our CEO, is has a consistent track record now of wishing people the very best when they leave a firm to start their entrepreneurial journeys, and then investing in them very often in their first round. So it's an entrepreneurial space both within a firm to solve a firm's problems, but also to solve the world's problems, that I think attracts me to a firm and keeps me here, because it was a very foundational experience in my life, and I enjoyed that entrepreneurial journey. But now I get to do it in a place with a lot of structure, which works better for my health and my mental health.
Understood. And what role did you when you were hired to Affirm? Was it in this role or was it in a different role?
I started out doing credit product and marketing analytics. So it's a credit role, which is a risk management role, but also did a lot of analytics for our product as well as our marketing strategies. And it gave me a nice high-level overview into the company and how the company operates. But about a year and a half ago, there was an opportunity to play a leadership role on risk and really focus on risk and specialize in credit, fraud, and merchant risk. And I took on that opportunity, and it's been a really good year or so in this new role.
Awesome. And you sort of alluded to some of the to my next question in your previous answers, but I'm curious why Affirm, and I guess even if we were to zoom out a little bit more, why join the BNPL, the buy now pay later space?
So I think I alluded to some of it, so I won't repeat it too much. But I think why Affirm was the vision for Affirm is more than buy now pay later. We do want to be a successful player in the buy now pay later space, and we think that buy now pay later is a very key step change in the industry, and we think that there's a lot of benefits there. But if you look at Affirm's mission and vision, it's around developing honest financial products that transform lives, and that is a bigger vision than just buy now pay later. So to me, that vision of the long run of what Affirm wants to build is what drew me to Affirm. And I think the second piece, which as a geek, I wanted to be in a place which had really cutting edge technology. And Max is the founder CEO. He established the fundamental fraud decision systems at PayPal, and that risk management bent is embedded into the company. And I knew that someone with my skill set, who's a risk manager to the core, would be valued here, and so it kind of brought me to Affirm.
And before we kind of jump into the technology discussion around what you've helped to build there, I'm curious, just sticking with your career trajectory, what have been some of the most challenging experiences you've had at Affirm, and maybe some of the most rewarding ones?
So at Affirm, one of the most challenging experiences is we've had a lot of success and we've had a lot of growth. So Affirm has been growing like a weed. You hear about it everywhere. It's like partnering with all the top companies in the space and is growing on its own will as well. As a risk manager, some of it comes to you're thinking around corners, you're being paranoid about what could go wrong. And you're trying to do that in a space where things haven't really gone wrong. It's gone really well for the company. And so there is that sense of complacency that you need to constantly fight. And that's been a big challenge for the risk team and me as the leader, which is how do you constantly think around corners, think around what potentially might be a lurking risk for the business that you need to address now before it's too late, and you don't get swept away in the good news stories that the company is kind of engendering. In terms of my most rewarding experience, I think I'll kind of take a slightly different tack to that answer. Affirm has, what I find very rewarding about Affirm is that it really embraces diversity, equity, and inclusion in a very holistic way. And, Zach, I am 6 foot tall, engineer. So it's not like I am someone who hits any of the normal. I am normally someone who benefits from bias versus is definitely someone who suffers from it. But to be in a place where people from all walks of life with all kinds of experiences are truly welcomed and are allowed to thrive, and to be able to kind of say that to my teams and say that to my colleagues and say that to my referrals who I'm trying to pull into Affirm, That to me is very rewarding, and I enjoy that about the place I work.
That's a powerful approbation. Just talking about some of the challenges. I hadn't really thought of that as the company is succeeding and growing and being applauded for that. That the risk team has to continuously fight against that. It's almost like you're carrying. Is it fair to say like you're carrying an umbrella on a sunny day? That was the image that came to me as you were describing it.
I like that, carrying an umbrella on a sunny day,
just in case,
and also someone carrying an umbrella on a sunny day, and you've lived in Los Angeles and it's never rained for for years now.
So. And all anyone ever does is talk about the sun. Exactly.
All anyone does is talk about the sun.
So let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about Affirm's technology and underwriting. Can you explain a bit about Affirm's proprietary tech and strategy around innovation?
Sure. At Affirm, from the very get-go, we custom built our proprietary technologies from the ground up. So we wanted this to be a differential advantage of ours from the day we started the company. So our credit decisioning engines, our fraud decisioning engines are all completely homegrown. And these machine learning models and rules and decisioning systems have continuously learned based on billions of data points over the years. And our decade of operations has fine-tuned the system even further. Unlike legacy payment systems and credit systems, we assess and underwrite risk at a transaction level versus extending a single line of credit. And what that means is that at every point, we're able to use the most current information to make a decision, which provides us an advantage versus traditional systems. We also look at data beyond the FICO score. And particularly, we look at all the credit attributes in the credit report. We look at all our transaction history with Affirm, as well as a variety of other data sources to comprehensively assess a consumer's willingness and ability to repay the loans that we provide to them. Also, we look at consumers outside the traditional credit ecosystem. So there's a very large credit invisible population in America. About 50 million Americans are outside the credit system. That's 5 times the size of New York City, just to kind of contextualize that. So it's a really large population. And we want to leverage alternate data to underwrite those consumers even better. Putting all this together, we underwrite deeper and more accurately than our competition, which allows us to take on the appropriate level of risk for the returns we anticipate. So it's very much a risk management, risk-taking business where we're taking on risk based on these tools that we have in our arsenal that allow us to differentiate ourselves.
I got it. So that last point you mentioned differentiation. I guess how would you position Affirm's technology and the risk stack that you've built vis-a-vis some of the other players in the space, whether it's another fintech lender or it's an incumbent? What makes Affirm different, essentially?
So I think versus the incumbents, it's an easier comparison set where they've all built their systems based on, so many of them were based on SAS, which is going a little technical here, but it's a tool which predates R and Python and some of the modern machine learning technology that have come through. So they're dependent on older tools. They're also often not looking at machine learning as a decisioning structure, but instead using logistic regression and more traditional statistical techniques. So we have these more sophisticated tools in our arsenal vis-a-vis the traditional banks who are stuck in their legacy systems. The other upstarts in the fintech space are all trying to do a lot of what we are doing. So I wouldn't say that we're the only players by any stretch of imagination to do what we do. But there, I think the differentiation comes down to scale for Affirm, where we are one of the players who has that modern technology toolkit, but have succeeded at scaling to a really large set of merchant and consumer network, which allows us to deploy that technology at scale. Because these types of technology are hungry for data, and they need a lot of data to outcompete the other approaches out there. And in our case, one of the benefits we have is that we've grown into such a large network that we have the benefits of the data. So I would say that when I compare us against the other fintech upstarts, we're larger and we have the data to outcompete them. When I compare us with the larger banks, we have the technology to the new next generation of technology to outsmart them. I'm oversimplifying here, and I'm sure there is a couple of people in a garage somewhere who have much better technology than Affirm, and they're going to come and compete with us over the next few years. But that's just the high level answer I would give to that.
That makes a lot of sense to me. And I guess, if you were to zoom out a little bit about your role and what you've built at Affirm. By the way, you've been one of only a handful of guests on this show focused on risk management. But what do you see as Affirm's greatest advantage in risk management? And what's the secret sauce, I guess?
I get asked that question often for the secret sauce. And I say that there is not one thing which is the secret sauce. A good risk management shop needs to be focused on being profitable and resilient. They need to have a constant attitude towards experimentation and exploration, and they need to be always equipped to react to an economic downturn. They need to have cutting edge technology, not just in credit and fraud decisioning, which is important, but not just in that, but also in monitoring for the latest trends, because you have a portfolio that you're monitoring and you need to identify root causes of maybe a credit deterioration in one subset of the population or a fraud attack that you're experiencing in a particular vector. So you're constantly monitoring your current portfolio. And you also need to have smart, motivated individuals who run towards problems to solve them versus running away and trying to stay on the sidelines. So those are the kinds of things all put together that result in this secret sauce. And there are many good, risk management shops in the business, but I'm biased and I do think that Affirm is one of the best. But there isn't the one thing that makes a difference. It is doing the hard work day in and day out that does make the secret sauce.
I like that. I have one follow-on question to that before I let you go. You mentioned sort of this almost archetype of somebody who runs towards problems instead of away from them. Do you hire those types of people, or is that something that is taught and engendered as well within the culture of Affirm?
We definitely hire for that, but I think hiring, you only get so much signal in hiring. It's a lot of it is down to luck. We tend to do very extensive references to make sure that we really are finding people with that attitude. Especially right now that we're in a remote first environment, there's no one looking over your shoulder. There's no one, telling you what to do. You need to find people who are truly self-motivated and self-driven to solve problems. And you need to then give them a space for them to thrive and grow. The other thing Affirm does quite well to do that, to engender that, is to grow many of our leaders internally. So a lot of the people who we get in, we identify those traits in them, they grow into leadership positions, and then they're able to run towards problems on behalf of a firm. It's very much a culture where people who are doing good work are rewarded and grown internally, so that they can do that work for the business at a greater scale.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you for joining us today, Karthik, on the Tearsheet Podcast.
Thank you. I had a great time. This was really fun to talk about risk management and geek out. So I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Zack.